Hi, this is T.W. Cook. I'm here to talk to you about Sea Scouts for Scoutmasters, but I want to turn that around for now and talk about Scoutmasters and their perspective on Sea Scouts. Our main point is, how do we sell Sea Scouts to Boy Scouts, or just Scouts, or Scout executives, or whoever in the rest of the BSA program? You're here because you've been in the Sea Scout program for a while, but for a minute, step back and look at Sea Scouts from the outside, from a Scouts BSA perspective. What do you see? Well, you see people doing stuff that looks fun and exciting, but that doesn't seem very approachable, especially if you're not a sailor. It isn't obvious how you could go help, how you could go play, or how you could offer any value. You see people that mostly stick to themselves and don't make any attempt to be a significant part of their councils or districts. You hear a bunch of confusing terminology like bosun, yeoman, skipper, Commodore. And you see a bunch of people who mostly wear uniforms that clearly say, "We are not on your team," and who may even come across as being paramilitary. Then you go look around and you see venturing, and it doesn't look like all that big of a stretch from where you are. Grab a green shirt, you're good to go. Activities are just amped up versions of the same things you already know how to do. Which direction are you likely to go? Are you even going to bother to ask? So what can we do about that? Our best hope for growth is to attract new scouts and skippers from within the BSA, yet the points above represent some significant impediments. Some of those things, like terminology, are easy to fix. It's a simple effort to explain those. The harder thing is to fix our attitude and the effect of that on how we're perceived. The Sea Scout program is in the midst of what could be a true renaissance, from what we might call Sea Scout, legacy Sea Scouts to a new modern Sea Scouts. The needed changes are already in place, but the word hasn't really gotten out, not even within Sea Scouts. The more we can accelerate these changes, the faster we can correct this and grow. And more importantly, the more we can make the new modern Sea Scouts visible to the rest of Scouting, the faster we can erase these barriers and their barriers to growth. So what are those changes? There are three that are critically important and that are visible and that we need to complete and publicize. The easy one is the uniforms. Instead of wearing recycled Navy uniforms that don't look anything like Scout uniforms, we need to switch everyone to the official Sea Scout uniform as soon as possible. Those of us acting as mentors or any sort of visible leadership role need to hang up the dress whites, dress blues, and khakis and never wear them again. The example we must set is that we look like Scouts and we are all on the same team, and the new uniform succeeds at that. And for those of us who say, "It makes us look like Cub Scouts," we say, "Great, it worked. You recognize us as some form of Scout rather than some weird Navy people." I want you to listen to this perspective on our uniforms from Brian on Scouting. This was recorded during last year's Report to Nation.
You'll get a lot of questions about the uniform because the uniform doesn't look like a Boy Scout uniform, right?
And that's from a guy who's one of our biggest advocates. The next one is broadening a program. This is huge. Large boats, mainly sailboats, have been the core of our program for years. But they're scary and they represent a barrier to entry. They're scary from a liability and risk management perspective. Any BSA professional will run away from the idea of a council or unit owning big boats for both cost and liability reasons, and for fear of getting stuck with them if the unit fails. Most Scout leaders don't have the sailing skills and don't see a direct way they can contribute to a sailing unit. The problem is that very few in the greater BSA, and not a few within Sea Scouts, realize that's not the only option. The advancement changes made in the 2016 Sea Scout Manual fully embrace paddlecraft ships, but the rest of BSA has no idea there can be such a thing as a paddlecraft ship. There are a lot of units, venturing crews, that are paddlecraft focused. They could have been chartered as a Sea Scout ship if only someone had known that was an option. We as Sea Scouts need to accept paddlecraft ships as full participants in Sea Scouts, and we need to let everyone know that's a viable option, and it's a powerful option. It reduces the barrier to entry for adult leaders. Most Scout leaders have at least a little bit of paddlecraft experience, and it also gets rid of that liability fear. A paddlecraft-based Sea Scout ship isn't any more scary from either a risk management or a cost or a skills perspective than a Boy Scout troop. Small paddlecraft boats have been a part of Sea Scouts from the beginning. The first ships used them heavily, but we've forgotten that. Think of paddlecraft as our gateway drug, if you will. Get them addicted, and then they can move on to more kinds of watercraft. And frankly, it works for the kids. Every teen I've run across lately is completely fascinated by stand-up paddleboards. Remember, Baden-Powell said, "A fisherman does not bait his hook with food he likes. He uses food the fish likes." So with boys. And the fish these days really like stand-up paddleboards and kayaks. The final one is integrating ourselves with the Rest of Bsa. The 2016 decision making us a top-level program is an important and visible milestone, but there have been years of effort building these bridges. For example, when councils have questions about Sea Scout advancement, where should they look? The Bible for Advancement is the BSA Guide to Advancement, and guess what? Everything they need is in there. When people need to know what patches go where do they look? The BSA Insignia Guide, and guess what? We're in there too. If a commissioner needs to know about Sea Scout ships, how can they find out? Again, there's a module in the standard online commissioner training for that. They just need to go look for it. Any one of these is a simple thing, but a lot of people have worked for years to get this done. We need to get the word out. We're part of this team. We need to get that word out both inside Sea Scouts and across the Rest of Bsa. Well, what about those councils that don't support Sea Scouts? Well, for those that claim their council doesn't support them, we need to paraphrase JFK. Ask not what your council can do for you, but what you can do for your council. Or in the words of our own Peter Schmidt, don't complain about the lack of council support. Be the council support. Realistically, we will never be a very big part of any Scout Exec's membership or financial goal, but we can have an impact on a council much greater than our size would indicate. And frankly, if we can give them at least one program that's consistently growing, we can help their cause. We can do simple things like encouraging our Sea Scouts to serve on summer camp staff. Having kids who are skilled sailors teaching small boat sailing turns out to be pretty darn useful. Consider adopting the camp boats and doing a fall and spring maintenance day. It's a good experience for your Scouts, and it'll make you awfully popular with the volunteers and professionals involved with your camps. Run some rain gutter regattas for Cub Scout packs. It'll plant a seed of awareness with Sea Scouts, with some kids that'll be Sea Scout age before you know it. There are lots more examples like Cub Cruises, Nautical Merit Badge Days, Color Guards, and just participating in district and council events like Camporees. Very few councils actually don't support Sea Scouts. It's far more likely that they just don't know you're there, you're not on their radar. Show up and do some things and see what happens. It's important that we seek out Scout leaders, volunteers, and professionals in the places they frequent, district roundtables, district and council training events, and so on, and be a visible contributor as a Sea Scout. It's important that we be visible at training events like Wood Badge and Powderhorn. For example, my council has included a Sea Scout orientation in our Powderhorn training for the past 10 years. It's resulted in quite a few recruits and at least 3 or 4 ship starts during that time. Certainly every University of Scouting needs at least a Sea Scout introduction, if not more. We have to be relentless in explaining and promoting our program everywhere we can to everyone we can reach within Scouting. Educate them in both word and deed. Instead of, "We never see those Sea Scouts. What good are they anyway?" Let it be, "Call the Sea Scouts. They never let us down." If you've been in Sea Scouts for a long time, as you've listened to this, you've probably started moaning about the loss of traditions, especially uniforms. But you know what? For the most part, the youth don't really care about those. The traditions that matter to them are the experiences and the adventures and the leadership opportunities. They're not going to think back and say, "Remember how cool those white uniforms were?" Instead, they're going to say, "Hey, remember that time we cruised to the Dry Tortugas and a storm came in and we started dragging anchor in the middle of the night? We all had to get up and deal with that." Or remember the time we kayaked down the Buffalo and the river started coming up and the rapids kept getting faster and faster and we finally had to camp on high ground for 2 days until the river went back down? Or maybe, "Wow, who knew you could travel 20 miles down a river on a stand-up paddleboard? I didn't think it was possible, but we did it." Or, "I can't believe we got 40 ships to come to our Sea Scout Academy. Getting all that organized and running smoothly was really hard, but we pulled it off." We mustn't forget that this is what it's all about, and modern Sea Scouts creates even more opportunities for these adventures than legacy Sea Scouts ever did. In closing, I want to refer you to a 30-minute video on Sea Scouts for Scoutmasters. There's a paper version of that too if you prefer a printed version that you can hand out. It's on seascout.org under New Leader Resources. Please review it and use it as one of your tools to help educate Scoutmasters and Scout executives on who we are and how we relate to them. You can find both of those and a lot more useful stuff on cscot.org. Thank you.